We are not doing our job. We need to teach chiropractic better. We need to up our game. Up our game. Because you look around that room and a lot of those people just had immune issues. They were fighting something, whatever it might be. Their body has an immune paralysis. They're not able to handle that bacteria, that virus, whatever it might be, as well as you or I might be able to. Why can't we make them more like us? Why don't we improve them? Why does that other person working in DD's shop, why don't we remove the restriction to what's capable, that resilience within them? That's our job. That's what we need to do, is get that message out.
Well, welcome, everybody. Dr. Ron Oberstein, president of Life Chiropractic College West, and welcome to another edition of our Life West Leadership Line. Today, I've got a dear friend, someone I've known for, 35 years, I think, going back to when you just graduated. Dr. Rob Sinnott coming at us from Illinois, the beautiful state of Illinois, just south of Chicago in Frankfort, Illinois. Welcome, Rob. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. It's good to see you, as always. You haven't changed a bit in all those years, by the way. So,
I got a little bit gray here and a lot less up.
Nah, that's the camera,
here, man.
That's the camera.
That's the angle. I know. And those three gentlemen behind you, up on that perch.
Yep. There's, it's funny. I was just driving past that yesterday. As a matter of fact, it's one of those things, and. When I talk with chiropractors, sometimes they'll say, well, I went to Western States, or I went to LACC, or whatever school they think they shouldn't have gone to. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, I don't care if you sat at Galen Price's feet. It doesn't give you an excuse. It's what you do with that degree. We all get a driver's license. We all can get on the road. It's what we do after we get on the road that matters. So, I don't care where people went to school. I'm more interested in where they go once they get out. So
it's so true, isn't it? It is so true. Yet we hold that the place we are born is the most important place in the world, right? But it's not what we do with what we have. I love it. Let me just share with our group. Hold on, I want to just share that Rob, you've been out for 35 years, right? You graduated in 1988. 89. You've been involved with the Diplomate, group of the ICA. You're doing the ICA Council on Philosophy. You're on the board. You're running the Diplomate program now for philosophy. But it's not that you're just a philosopher. This is what I love. You've got that philosophical side to you. We'll call it the right brain, just for whatever reason. And yet you got the left brain because you've done a ton of research, and you're so heavily invested in HRV and other research things going on in chiropractic. So I just love that balance, man. It's like you can actually walk and chew gum at the same time. And I love it. I really do. So thank you for all that you're doing around that stuff. But so I cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, that's all I was going to say was. A lot of chiropractors that it doesn't matter what school you went to. This is every chiropractor's home. This is, it's kind of, I tell people the same thing that aren't Irish. I tell them that they are Irish because Adam and Eve were Irish. Where their kids moved doesn't matter, so. But really, though, I mean, it's what's in the mortar of Palmer is in all of us, all of us that practice. We're all about the same thing. That's, we're all one family. And I hate it when we divide up over stupid things, like what address we got our driver's license mailed to or mailed from or whatever, so. Yeah. But yeah, the science and philosophy fit so well together. And because the scientific method, the first step of the scientific method is for philosophy to ask a question. Right. And Didi did that. He said, why? Why are two men working in the same shops, eating at the same bench, breathing the same air and so on? We all know the quote from his 1910 text. Why? Why is this man healthy? He wanted to know the why of health, not the why of sickness. He could care less. He wanted to know the why of health. Why is this man resistant? Why is he resilient under the same stresses in the same environment? And that's where science needed to look. And that's one of the frustrations with me. A few years ago, I think it was April of 20, the the WFC sent a letter out saying that none of us were supposed to talk about immune connection to the adjustment in our offices because there was no research. Now, a lot of people read that and got very upset. I read that and I was upset for a different reason. I was upset because we've been funding them for decades and they haven't done the work to answer these questions. You know, if this is something that you're taking on as your role, that you're supposed to be science and you're supposed to be guiding this, and you haven't done it. I mean, we haven't even got a fourth lumbar study yet. You know, I mean, are we not supposed to touch fourth lumbars? We all got to hang around on our five and just, you know, that's all we can do. So, I mean, it's a little absurd, but,
It is.
you know, science is there. Science is talking about our philosophy. There's a movement in medicine that Joaquin Sternberg from New South Wales, he's a medical doctor and a researcher at their university there. He's kind of the leader of the movement. And there are people from, you know, Georgetown and the head mathematician from our Army and so many people are involved. And their whole purpose is to try to get medical education to change and to focus on restoring health instead of fighting disease. Wow, does that sound familiar?
What a concept. What a concept.
Oh.
You know, and something you said was so true because, you know, it's like, you know, the science always starts with a question. The research always starts with a question, right? There has to be a postulate, and it could be a philosophical. So really, the science proves the philosophy, and the philosophy drives the science. And if people understood that, you know, what we know true today that we didn't know true, you know, 10 years ago, but we were thinking it 10 years ago, right? And that's the difference. And I'll tell you where I kind of get caught up. My craw gets a little bit, you know, that people talk about evidence-based, you know, and to me, I'm the biggest proponent against evidence-based because evidence-based, you know, the three circles, right? You got the patient, you got the clinical evidence, right? And you've got the research, right? Makes research the biggest one, right? And the clinical, of course, is the doctor's viewpoint. And of course, you got the patient viewpoint. We're evidence informed, same three circles, but the patient is the biggest, is the primary, right? Because someone heals and you're going to go, I'm sorry, you really didn't heal because we don't have the research to prove it. But then 10 years from now, we get the research, right?
Right.
And research is vital. It's so important, but it doesn't dictate what's working or not working.
Right. Right now, we have the wrong people asking the questions. The researchers aren't supposed to ask the questions, and it should be a group discussion that starts research, and it's not. You know, and that's kind of where we've run into problems, and it's why medicine has run into problems is because they're not patient focused, like you're saying. Because in that equation of those circles, the variable is the patient. Every one of them is different, and you know, I know Reggie Gold used to use that quote about you can't step in the same river twice because it's constantly changing. And that's every person that comes to see us. You give that adjustment. It's not like a blood pressure pill where you give them a blood pressure pill, not you, but, you know, a medical doctor gives them a blood pressure pill and their blood pressure goes down. They take it away, it goes up. Give it to them, goes down, take it away, it goes up. You give someone an adjustment, you take it away. I mean, right. You know, and it's the same thing. You know, I explained this to an educational researcher. I had him speak for us about it was in 2018 at the last adaptability symposium. And he said, well, I don't know why you want me to speak. He's a statistician for educational research. And he's from Central Florida, brilliant guy. And I said, well, let's use your example of education. Let's say that there's two different methods to teach a child to read. Let's take a group of kids and we'll teach them using method A. Okay, we measure that we can measure them after a period of time to see how they've progressed. And, you know, you accept that. Oh, yeah. I said, OK, now we don't let them read for 2 weeks. And then we use method B on the same kids. He goes, well, that doesn't work. I said, that's our problem. This is where we're at. You can't unlearn. The body can't unlearn what's happened with the adjustment. There's a cascade of things, most of which you and I have no idea of. We don't even realize the massive changes that have taken place from an adjustment under our hands. It boggles the mind. And, you know, hopefully one day science will get to the point where it's doing this kind of stuff the way they're supposed to. And we're getting closer all the time. There's things coming out and, you know, we're slowly getting there, you know.
Yeah, but even when we get there, you know, or when we think we get there, right? There's new research that can come about in 15 years to say, hey, you know what we thought was right wasn't necessarily wrong, but it's this now. And that's cool. That's progression, right? That's as we become more enlightened, we get more sophisticated ways of creating scientific evidence, through technology, whatever it might be. We're going to find different results. And that's the beauty about science. It doesn't say, this is it. It can't be different, right? It's always growing, it's evolving, right? And yet what we do in chiropractic by delivering the adjustment, we can't explain that scientifically, maybe at what's going on, throughout the body, but we know it's happening. And that's that whole thing about, where I love the evidence informed, because the patient has an experience about it, or they have a result from it, right? And yet we might not be able to, show it on scientific research, but we have it right there anecdotally, and we have to be able to accept that.
Maybe something we don't expect. I remember many years ago, I had an older gentleman. I had put him on a side posture toggle table, and I did a, palmar upper cervical toggle, and all of a sudden he went, and started. I'm like, but damn, that sounded like a death rattle. I'm thinking, I'm nervous because I'm pretty new in practice. I'm thinking, what's going on here? And I said, do you have any questions? And he said, is it possible I could take a deep breath now? He hadn't been able to take a deep breath since he was about 20 years old. And here's this 80-year-old guy that can suddenly breathe deep. I had a guy that had a limp going down the hallway in front of me his first day. And he talked about whatever he wanted, brought him in, never mentioned the limp. And I said, I have to ask you, I noticed when you were coming down the hallway, you had a bit of a limp. What's that about? And he was about 80. And he said, well, when I was a kid, I had polio and my legs were paralyzed. And that one just never came back. 2 weeks after I started working with him, his leg was fine.
Yeah.
Over 70 years, this guy limped.
Yeah. But he bought a narrative also, obviously, right? Which isn't wrong, because he was told something by somebody that you'll never be the same, right?
Yeah.
Never thought about alignment, never thought, it's like someone saying, yeah, your car is always going to be like that. The back end on the right side is always going to be lower. It's just going to be like that. Oh, well, maybe I should just change the shock, just check on the springs, or, it's just, it is crazy the things that we buy, or that people actually share, they sell, whatever word you want to use. It's funny, you talked about, having that happen, the guy getting the toggle and things change. I asked Dan Murphy, we were sitting down and we're talking about the service trips that we do at Life West, because we go to Tonga, we go to India, we go to Mexico. In fact, there's 3 trips happening right now, today.
Wow, that's cool.
Today's day 1, and I've got students and docs at all of these places, right? And they're delivering chiropractic to places where they can't get chiropractic. And the miracles that we see are incredible. Now, I'm going to call them miracles from the outside world, because someone like you and I and our viewers might go, that's not a miracle. If the body gets normalized, it's gonna work correctly, or it's gonna heal.
But that's how these people are going to view it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just unbelievable. Yeah, it's beyond something they can comprehend.
That's exactly it. That's a miracle. And I asked Dan, why on these service, what do you think, Dan, on these? And he went through this whole almost like a cascade effect of, parasympathetic, not coming in with the intention of having a healing and not having all these things in their head going, well, my medical doctor said I can't do this and it's never going to work, and all that. And he just talked about this whole thing, not having all the cell phones and all the activity that we have that stimulates our sympathetic system, and how they can integrate the adjustment.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And, you have to realize that I don't know who figures these things out, but they're saying now that the kids today aren't going to live as long as their parents for the first time since the start of our country, which that's kind of a mess. I mean, granted, you and I probably had, I don't know, if we had vaccines, it might have been 3 or 4 to, what do they get, 72 by the time you're 6 years old. You get a vaccine the day you're born, that the only way you can get that type of hepatitis is sharing needles and indiscriminate sex. I mean, why are we giving this to newborn? I mean, it doesn't make it boggles the mind, the rationale. And I'm not saying it's all vaccines or whatever. We spray everything with Roundup. We spliced salmon genes into corn, and we do dumb things. I don't know. you can throw a dart and hit a reason. We've made a mess of the world, but you and I are breathing the same air, eating the same food as everybody else. Why are these kids having all these problems?
Right, and they say it all in the name of science, or better living through chemistry.
Chemistry, exactly.
Was that Monsanto? Better living through chemistry.
I wouldn't doubt it. I had a guy some years back. He was about 80, and he was a former chemical engineer for Monsanto. And I said, "Oh, Monsanto," because they were in the news at that time because somebody was suing them over Roundup at the time. And he said, "Oh, that Roundup thing." He said, "That stuff's harmless." I said, "Would you like a glass?"
Yeah,
shut up. It's harmless. Come on.
They say once it gets into the soil, this is what I heard. But the word, once it gets into the soil, it totally gets neutralized, right? And meanwhile, weeds won't grow anymore. Things don't happen anymore. It's
Right.
like, come on, man. There's got to be any kind of chemistry. There's got to be effect to it,
Yeah.
It's like people buy this stuff. They buy that,
They do. They do, but you'll give them the most logical explanation, that you can give them from a chiropractic perspective, and it's not going to sink into everybody. But you just have to decide how long you want to knock on that door before you go to the next one and say the hotel's on fire. You know the old analogy, and it's you can't save everybody, and that's okay. At the end of this ride, it's one to a box. I tell people that all the time. You could take my recommendations or not, or ignore them. But it's one to a box, and I can't be responsible for how you live your life. You have to make your own decisions, and I don't harbor any ill will if you don't take my recommendations for the care that you need. That's fine, but whatever choice you make, it's going to have ramifications.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too. You talk about education, and educating our patients, right? And what you say. And obviously, you've been at this game for 30 plus years, 35 years, whatever. And you take a look and you see, nowadays, the badge of honor these days is like, oh, I got 80 new I can get you 80 new patients every month, and I know you and I, we couldn't even take 80 new patients a month, It's like, it just doesn't work like that. If you got 80 new patients, you're losing 81, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but it really comes down to simplicity. I know that, and that, but, to use our philosophical constructs, into our educational platform to be able to educate without, people think, oh, you got to take Stevenson's and verbatimly say that, there's an innate intelligence that resides in each. No. Like,
yeah.
What are some of the key things that you're using, and I'm not talking about lines, I'm talking about more just metaphors and analogies.
Yeah. Well, if I'm going to teach people about innate intelligence, quite honestly, like you say, you don't have to use the word. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to do things as long as the point gets made. And I'll tell people, I like sunflowers. So I have a sunflower here in my windowsill in my office, and I turn it to face me because I want to look at it. And, I see a few people, and then I glance over at it, and one of them jerks must have walked over and turned it because now it's facing out the window. So I turn it back to face me, and I look suspiciously at the last person that was in here, I go to lunch, I lock the door. I know damn well I locked the door, and I come back, and the damn thing, someone has come and turned it out the window again. And I tell people, when does it stop doing that? And they always say the same thing. As soon as it dies. I said, exactly. And your body's doing the same thing. It's easy to get that idea across to people that their body's constantly healing. You cut a finger, you don't have to sit and think of finger tissue. Your body knows what to do. If anything, our educated mind gets in the way more than it helps because it may decide to smoke cigarettes or go drink a 6-pack of Monster or whatever out there that that's bad for us. And I think we think we just make it too hard. With little kids, I have a little one of those finger push-up things where they collapse and then they pop up, and I use that with them, and they get it. They don't have to take a diplomate level test in philosophy to I don't.
This is interesting. When I had Herbert Ross Reaver up on the stage back in, can't remember what year it was 2000 sometime, and we were in Orange County, and it was beautiful. We had 1,000 people in the audience. There were students and doctors, and it was really amazing. And somebody asked him, like, what do you do? We after, I interviewed him, we had two microphones in the back and they were lined up each side to ask questions. And someone said, how'd you educate people back in, back then, in the 30s, about chiropractic and yada, yada, yada. And his line was so beautiful. Here's what he said, Rob. He goes, when I graduated chiropractic college, granted, he only went to school for, I believe, 12 months, right? He said, when I graduated chiropractic college, I was so excited to tell the world about innate intelligence. That was it. I was so excited, and how I extrapolated that was I was just so excited to tell the world about how there's an intelligence within you that is always with you, that allows you to heal, and that when you die, that intelligence might not be there anymore. That kind of thing. It was just simple, man. Just simple. It wasn't neck pain, back pain, crick strains, migraines, which we're great with, and which someone comes in with. This is the right place. I mean, but it's like really just talking about the intelligence within, And
the more simple it is, the better they're going to remember it to tell their spouse or their neighbor or whatever. Yeah. If we overcomplicate things and make it something difficult for them to pass on, that's going to make the referral system harder. And we can't do that because it's not so much that we're all about getting referrals. We're all about people getting under care. That's what I care about. And lately I've been talking a lot to people about causes, and I tell them that causes matter. So when I do my first visit with someone, along the way I'll ask the question. They'll have all these things that they've gone through before they come to us. And I'll say, what's been done for you? You mentioned a few things you've done medically. What's been done for you so far that's done the most permanent good? And I just stare at them and wait. And it only takes them 2 or 3 seconds to go, permanent? Well, nothing. Because if you take that blood pressure pill, it goes down. You take it away, it goes up. So they're not fixing your blood pressure, or you wouldn't have the problem anymore. It's kind of like, so to me, when I explain that causes matter, you go to the doctor because you're not sleeping well at night. Sleep's a big thing today. You're not sleeping well at night. And so you go in and tell them, I've got this terrible noise in my ears at night. It's off and it's on, and it's annoying, and it wakes me out of a dead sleep, and I don't know what to do. So you talk to them about the problem in a little more detail, and they decide the best thing for you to do is you're going to put a ceiling fan up above your bed, because that'll circulate the air, and that noise in the ceiling won't be so loud anymore. So it doesn't go off as much, but still every night it's waking me up at least once with that, driving me crazy. So next they'll prescribe a set of something to plug my ears. Doesn't bother me as much, but that thing's loud. It still gets through a little bit. Then they get me one of those little like hair things you put on in a shower cap that they put over the top of that thing. But they're not hermetically sealing it, so air still gets around it a little bit, and at least once a night it's still bothering me. So you got to do something. I don't care what it is. So they send me to a surgeon, and the surgeon goes up into my ceiling and clips the nerves going to the smoke alarm, because that's the problem to them, not the smoke. The smoke's not even the cause, but what's causing the smoke? We have to keep going backwards in the way we think, and people understand that. So when you talk about, well, you said you're taking blood pressure medication. So what caused that? Was it a drug deficiency? And they're like, what do you mean? Well, you're taking drugs. So if that fixed it, then that must have been a drug deficiency. And they're like, well, no. Like, well, so they're not actually interested in why you have high blood pressure. Well, no, I guess they're not. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter what the problem is. You can go through the litany of things. Right. And when you look at what science is showing, in I think it was about 2013, Toner did a study from the London hospital. They were trying to figure out, why are all these people coming to us in their later decades of life with all these, their organ failure. They're not digesting well. They have lung issues. They're on oxygen. They can't get back off again. Pick a system. It doesn't matter. They have immune paralysis because they're getting repeated infections. And, why is this happening? What did we miss 30, 40 years ago? And what they found is there's a neurological shift that's taken place in these people towards fight or flight. And over decades, this is where they end up. unless they go through a cycle of restoration. And if you go through a cycle of restoration, it restores that proper function in the nerve system, but they don't know how to do it because they don't know we even exist. And that's the kicker to me. All these years later, and they don't understand what we do. By now, we should have at least tried to explain it to them. But instead, we open up a phone book. Is there still phone books? I don't know. You open a phone bok, and it's the 8 danger signals or the 12 danger signals of low back pain, or were you in a car accident? And what's that got to do with it? So people don't know what we do, and it's kind of our fault. But we make it too hard sometimes. The simple cycle is, that safety pin. There's nothing simpler than that. I mean, people can understand that.
That's right. That's right. It's right. And, it's interesting, too, because on the other side of the coin, when you were asking the questions about, well, do you have a drug deficiency? It's been complicated so much on this other side that they complicate. It's a sales tactic. And I got to commend them for it. Really, because it's a sales tactic, and they create these problems, and yet they show the simple solution with the man and the woman in the bathtub in the beautiful wheat fields of Nebraska holding hands, right? And then they're walking along, and it's for Viagra or for whatever else. But then as it's rolling and scrolling through all the side effects, you're not thinking that because you're seeing this beautiful couple walking or whatever it is, and we've depowered, we've disempowered, disenfranchised people, and I really think that's the whole thing. The whole thing about talking with Herbert Ross Reaver, excited to tell the world about innate intelligence. It was about, I want to empower people to know where health comes from, right? And like you said, they don't need to have 5 research papers from a R1 institute. They just need to just understand it, and that's the greatest thing we can do, is to reconnect them back to their self-responsibility, right? Their power.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, for you and I, that research isn't important at all, because we do what we do no matter what. And it's because it's logical, science, we can wait for science to catch up. But when I went through school, and actually for 9 years after I was out of school in practice, we thought the vagus nerve was purely efferent. It was totally autonomic nerve. Mm-hmm. Now we know that that's not true, that 70 to 80% of that nerve is afferent, it's sensory. So only 20% of that nerve is autonomic. The other 80% is sensory. It's not even an autonomic nerve. We still don't talk about it right, but we didn't know that. So we didn't know how information from the gut got back to the brain. We had no idea. No idea until 1998. I mean, that is unbelievable. So how can we possibly show the cycles that they talked about, the normal complete cycle, the abnormal complete cycle, the practical cycle, the restoration cycle? How can we possibly do research on these if we don't even know how that information is getting back to the brain anatomically?
Right.
I mean, it's boggling.
It is. And I think for our viewers, the important thing to understand is that you could still show the house and show the function of the house, and you can show where you live and what you do, that this is the laundry room, and you don't necessarily have to understand all of the plumbing and the electrical circuitry and all that stuff, but you could, to live in the house and have it function, right? You don't have to necessarily understand all that. And there's people who do. But the truth is like, I don't want to have to understand that, but not know how to use it. I want to know how to use it because I'm a consumer, right? And I want to know, how do I regain my health? And I don't need to know everything behind it, because I've already been told I can't, right? That I need something to come in. I just want to know, can I, right? And what is it going to take? And it's so interesting. But I believe this, Rob, the more we own it, the more we know. I'm not saying we should know as doctors. We should know. Because the more we own it, the more intention we have behind what we do, and it just creates that cascade cycle of why were they lined up to go see Birdie in British Columbia when he had a cigarette in his mouth, delivering a NUCA adjustment back in the 70s, but they were lined up out the door because the guy got results.
Yeah. Well, and you think about it, 100 years ago, my great uncle graduated from Palmer 100 years ago last month. So my family has been involved in nonstop chiropractic for 100 years so far. There's 5 of us. It's exciting to me that I get to be part of that, that history. But that previous year in June of 23, we've heard about the Crusader class. That was Gonstead was in that class. Dr. Barge's dad was in that class. John Q. Thaxton was in that class, who was very a close friend of BJ's. He took over the ICA when BJ died. A brilliant guy in his own right. But there were so many people. There was 800 and some people in that class. Within 6 months, half of them had been arrested.
Yeah. Yep.
So in researching this, because our new Diplomate class had started yesterday, or it started this Friday, past Friday, I nicknamed him the Crusader class because when you started to tell people this class was coming, it was last summer. And I thought, it's the 100th anniversary. This is going to be our new Crusader class. And so I started researching what these people thought and what they wrote about back then. These people, it wasn't a coincidence that half of them were in jail. They graduated saying, I'm going to go get arrested so we can get licensed. I mean, that was their attitude walking out the door. And it's mind-numbing to think of the commitment that they have. I mean, and thank God for it, because it made it easier for me. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm not running a cell block. I know that. I'd be in big trouble.
I love it. Me too, brother. Me too. Me too. Hey, listen, we're kind of coming to the end of our time, but I want to do something with you because my wife and I, Dr. Mary, we have we do a webcast called the Life by Life West, where we have anywhere from recent grads up to people in practice 15, 17 years. It's, that's the avatar with that. And we ask them 2 questions at the end. And something just innately hit me that I want to ask you these questions because it's pretty cool, especially if it's going to go in with what we talked about. And we always tell them, Rob, that the answers, there's no perfect answer. It could change if I ask you in 10 minutes, kind of thing, right? But I just want like a 30-second response to whatever pops up first, right? So the first question we ask him is this. Rob, if you could go back and talk to Rob Sinnott, that first try student, first day of school, sitting in class, knowing what you know now, what would you tell him?
Well, I'll be honest, I've made a lot of decisions that just worked out really well for me. I suppose the thing I would do even more is hunt down more older graduates than I even did, because when I got out of school, the first thing I'd do when I'd save up enough money where I could get off ramen noodles, instead of doing that, I'd get a plane ticket and I'd go visit Marianne Pruitt for 4 days, or I'd go visit, whoever it might be. I'd find some older chiropractor and learn from them, because they're all gone now. Yeah. And it's difficult. And I think that's unfortunate that, we lose a little bit every generation. But that would be my advice to younger graduates is, I know it's not really a thing today to think anyone over 30 knows anything, but there are some brilliant chiropractors out there. Pick their brains. They're happy to share. And I'm glad I figured that out pretty early on. But that to me was the biggest thing, and just to not give up, because I don't care if I had to start over in kindergarten that first day of chiropractic school. It's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Second question. Same question, but who you're going to speak to now is Rob Sinnott, just graduated. What one piece of advice would you give him? Just graduated.
Probably to be less afraid of starting my own practice right off the bat, because you think there's things you don't know. When I stepped, I'll never forget the feeling when Don Kern was the president then, and he handed me my diploma. We took our picture and I walked to the stage and I went to step off the first step and I thought, wait, I don't feel any different. Because I thought like something was going to happen, that I would suddenly feel smart or something. And, that we have the tools we need to be successful in life and in practice. And we need to have confidence in ourselves a little bit more. Says,
I love it. It brings me to Irene Gold. Irene Gold did one of my commencements a few years ago, and that's exactly what she said to the graduate. She looked out and said, this college has equipped you with everything you need to be successful. Trust yourself. And it was beautiful, because it is true. And it's not bad to go associate, and it's not bad to go.
No.
There's so much to learn, as we know, but they do.
Just for clarification, I associated with a 53 national grad whose claim to fame was sending Jim Winterstein to school. So needless to say, he and I did a lot of this for 2 years before I said I can drown with this guy wrapped around my neck, or I can swim out on my own and drown on my own accord. So
And you did, and you floated. You kept going.
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing good.
I love it. Rob, thank you, man. Thanks for coming back on the show, having you again. It's always
before we hop off, can I show you 2 quick slides?
Yes. Can you get on it?
Yep, I can do it right here.
Okay.
Now this is the number 1 surgical hospital in the Chicagoland area is Silver Cross. It's in Joliet. Now I'm going to show you can see this.
Yeah, it's on.
This is a little video. You can hear it. Hopefully. Let me see.
Okay, here we are this morning at Silver Cross Hospital in Joliet, one of the premier hospitals of the Chicagoland area. Let's go into the emergency room and see what the wait time is today.
So what do you think the wait time is in the emergency room Thursday morning?
Looks pretty empty there. I'd say it's probably maybe 15 minutes. 15 hours?
15 hours. Who is waiting 15? Who would wait 15 hours to come to one of our offices? They have such a control over people. People sit there for a day and they'll wait. Now, when it was 7 hours, it was actually over 17 hours. So when it's 15, I can only imagine what it really is. Now, the reason I thought this was important to see, let me get back to, let me get out of this here.
And that's an emergency room. So
that's
I got an emergency and I got to wait 15 hours. Wow.
And that video actually went further. I went in and I left my camera filming, but there were people laying all over the floor with these little flannel sheet things they give people. Some were asleep. It was 4:30 in the morning, or 5 o'clock in the morning. Some people are laying down over here. They were all over the hallways. And I thought I cut it off because I thought I can't show this because it made me sick to think this is how we treat people in this country. But the point I want us to walk away from is 2 things. Think of what these people are getting across to the public to make them wait for crap care. What are they going to do? My wife had a bad infection in her finger. All happened in one day. No cut, no nothing. Just like that. She started getting lines up her hand. It was obviously a septic. Started going up her arm by afternoon. Had to take her in. And guy in the ER, he said, yeah, we'll hook her up to whatever. I said, now, you know, some things she can't have. You know that, right? Oh, yeah, no problem. I said, okay. So they hooked her up to this bag of crap. And well, granted, she needed it, you know, but they hooked her up to it. And I said to the nurse, I don't know this medication. I've never heard of it before. And she goes, oh, we use it all the time. I said to Gail, I'll be back in a minute. She goes, where are you going? I said, I have to go talk to the nurse. I walked out to the nurse's station. I said, is this a problem that this is this says fatal reaction, you know, to that if there's something she can't have? Oh. And the doctor walked up right when I showed it to her. And he said, what do you got there? I said, well, look, this is your business, not mine. But should I be worried about a fatal contradiction? And he goes, let me see that. And he looked at it and he handed it back to me. And he taps the nurse from behind. He goes, yeah, we'll pull that right away. And then he goes, hand to God, this is what he said to me. He goes, how about vancomycin? And he's holding it. And I'm thinking, what the hell, dude? So I pull out my phone. It says moderate interaction. I suppose that's better. What the hell? People waiting 15 hours for this? We are not doing our job. We need to teach chiropractic better. We need to up our game. Because you look around that room and a lot of those people just had immune issues. They were fighting something, whatever it might be. Their body has an immune paralysis. They're not able to handle that bacteria, that virus, whatever it might be, as well as you or I might be able to. Why can't we make them more like us? Why don't we improve them? Why does that other person working in DD's shop, why don't we remove the restriction to what's capable, that resilience within them? That's our job. That's what we need to do, is get that message out.
Absolutely. Well said. Bravo. And that's what we're going to end on, man. Woo! We should have started with that, brother. Should have pulled that video out right at the very beginning.
Yeah, 15 hours. That's scary. And, you know, I talked to someone a week later from the board, and I didn't show her that picture, but I did say, you know, there's people waiting an awful long time down there. Well, a lot of those people shouldn't even be in the emergency room. She may blame the people.
Is it acceptable or not acceptable? Bottom line, and in modern healthcare, it is not acceptable. Though there's
absolutely,
but it's not acceptable. That's crazy, man.
Absolutely, so.
Crazy planet we're on, brother. But that's why we got to start doing our job even bigger, is what you're saying.
Up our game.
Up our game, baby. I love it. I love it. And to all of our viewers, Rob, thank you so much, man. To all of our viewers, up our game. That's the battle cry right now. Thank you, man. Thanks for
my pleasure.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much. And our viewers, thank you for coming on. Thank you for listening. Wealth of stuff here. Man, go back and educate your people and educate them how they should be educated, right? And if you tell them the truth and you tell them what your truth is, you know what? They're going to understand it and they're going to feel it. And it doesn't take a lot. Like Rob said, you don't need to be a diplomat in philosophy to be able to share what chiropractic is. You just need to understand it, be part of it, be in it, and live it. And
don't think of this as building your practice, because I don't think of it that way. I think of it as I don't have the right to withhold that information from people.
Right. That's right. It's not our job. It's not our right to do that. They need to know. And it's just where we're coming from. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again next time for another Life Leadership Line, Life West Leadership Line. We drop these every other week. The opposite week says the Life by Life West. And just keep telling the story and tell it again. Keep telling it and tell it till it hurts, because you know what
he said.
Greatest thing we can do. Greatest thing. See y'all. Bye-bye.